Hi, I'm Dr. Gillian Wilson and I'm a clinical psychologist and resident consultant with Be Balanced Educational Resources and Be Balanced BU. So tonight I'm going to do a quick exploration of the area of exam stress and how as parents we can help young people navigate through this difficult time. So the first thing I would say in terms of helping young people as a parent is trying to relax ourselves. It's very easy to get caught up in all the anxiety as a parent for what our young people are going through. With social media these days, we're at times bombarded with information from school and information on the television and information on other social media devices about exams and how important they are and all these dates. So it's trying to keep your head as a parent, trying to relax and trying to remember that, the teachers in our schools want our young people to pass. They want them to do well. So they have been working for the last months and years and preparing our young people and working them up towards these exams. The other thing with stress is people tend to think stress is really bad, and it's not. In some ways, stress actually is a really positive and a really good thing in the right circumstances. So if we're going in to do a job interview, then feeling stressed that morning can help us actually perform much better. The difficulty is when the stress becomes prolonged and it's over a prolonged period of time. That's when it can start to really affect our mental health and our physical health. So in terms, I suppose, the experience for our young people, it's important to recognise that, we'll all look back and have experiences when we were growing up at school and on doing exams. Some of us will have good experiences, some of us will have bad experiences, but it's important to recognise that they were our experiences and not necessarily what it's going to be like for young people. So if we had a really good experience at school doing exams and did well, it's important to remember that our young person may have other struggles at school and may not be having that experience. So all young people are different, and one of the first things I think is just asking them and asking how they're getting on, how are they feeling about their exams, do they have worries, do they have concerns, and how you can help them. Because another thing, I think a lot of parents, it's very easy to fall into the trap of asking them all the time, are you okay? Do you need anything? How can I help? What can I do? And sometimes actually young people can find that a bit overwhelming. So it's that checking in and saying, what can I do to help you? How can I best help you? Do you want me to give you space? Is there anything practical I can do? Can I help you with any of the organising? It may be very practical things like cooking their favourite meal. It's actually something that they find really helpful. Or other practical things like if they're studying, being mindful that although they're maybe upstairs in their bedroom, if you decide to start vacuuming in the living room, that they can hear that in their room and it maybe puts them off. So in terms of, I suppose, practical things for exams, a lot of it these days the schools will help young people to organise themselves. So things like planning and having a timetable for revision, organising their notes. Colour coding can be very helpful, so each subject has a different colour, and on their timetable and in their folders that's all matching, so it takes the mental load out of trying to organise their work. Using flashcards, there's some good apps around these days that you can use to do like digital flashcards, using your phone for timers or taking notes. So really looking at the structure of how they go about doing the work and making sure that they factor in rest periods and breaks, because they're going to need time to decompress as well. So they can't work all the time, and actually it's a really bad habit to get into as a young person, because you then carry it through as an adult, and as you know, as we all know and we hear a lot these days, as an adult, it's about getting balance with your work life and your family and your social activities and your hobbies. So it's good to teach young people early on about that balance. The other thing I think is important to help them think about is the bigger context. That you know, sometimes it's easy to get into thinking that this is like a one-shot chance. If you do well in your exams, you're going to have a fantastic life with a well-paid job and life's going to be great. And if you don't do well or you fail your exams, then life's going to be awful. And that's a very common thinking pattern that we can get into, where things become very polarized, very black and white, and it's kind of an all or nothing. Either this is great or it's awful. And you lose sight of the grey in the middle. So it's helping them to to keep sight of that. Not all children suit academic exams. They just don't suit the school system and the exam system, and yet can be wonderfully talented. Some of our best musicians, artists, weren't good at school and didn't do well in exams, and yet they have these amazing talents. So in terms of then practical strategies to think of helping with managing the stress, a lot of anxiety management tools can be really helpful. So things like meditation, mindfulness, relaxed breathing strategies, and CBT strategies, which is cognitive behavioural therapy. Some of those can really help. And as I mentioned, it's thinking about pacing and about making sure that the young person's taking breaks. So this is where things like timers on phones are really helpful, because it just helps cue them in. It doesn't need to be a really long break. It could be a short break. One of the things I sometimes would suggest to young people is coming up with a list of music that they really like. So some of it's maybe music that's very energetic music, and some of it that's quite relaxing. And if they maybe work for half an hour and then take a 3-minute break, that if they're feeling tired, then listening to a really energetic song, getting up out of the chair, dancing like nobody's watching you, and just kind of getting rid of some of that physical stress that builds up in their body. So the way you can kind of feel tension in your shoulders and your neck, getting up and moving about and listening to music is going to really help with that. As I mentioned in one of our previous podcasts, again, I'm a big fan of walking. Getting out, getting in the fresh air, getting into nature is really good at helping us to relax and decompress. And it also has a lot of physical benefits through the movement of walking and the walking pattern that just helps us to regulate our nervous system and get rid of that stress and process it. So it's trying to, where you can, think how you can work those in to the diary over the week. Practical things like just making sure that they're eating well, having good food available in the house that they can get, and that, you know, ideally you have some foods that maybe like bananas that are slow release energy, and helping them to make sure that they're not staying up working late, that they're getting to bed on time and they're getting a good amount of sleep. So part of it's about just helping them to keep perspective really through the whole thing, and trying to stay positive as a parent and supportive. So, you know, really what you want to be, if you're anxious and stressed, as I said, they're going to pick up on that. So you want to try and be the calm harbour in the middle of all this kind of storm of stress that's happening around them. Even if you're not feeling calm, you want to try to model that to them, that you're the person they can come and talk to if they're stressed, that you know it's going to be okay, that you've confidence in them, that this is going to be fine, and whatever happens at the other end of the exams, that you'll work it through. So, you know, I think that's one of the most important things. You know, like sometimes actually for a young person, just giving them a hug can be really, really helpful. So it's trying to think of helping them maybe to use some of those strategies, asking them, what can you do? Don't make assumptions about what would be helpful. Ask them to help you know how you can help them, and trying to stay calm so that you can support them, and also being mindful of yourself as well, because it is stressful for parents. You know, we want our children to do well, and sometimes it's hard as a parent to stand back and let them grow up, and let them sometimes make mistakes. So as well as trying to be calm and being there for them, it's also important to take time and look after your own mental health and get support for yourself as well. Thanks for listening.